Welcome back to Paranormal Tedium. It's time for another breakdown episode in the series Rich's Complete and Utter Breakdown. A series recorded at our secret lard facility located approximately 10 foot below the Yorkshire-Derbyshire border. And it's here where I take a look at the equipment used by ghost hunters in their efforts to capture evidence of ghost energy and other supernatural mischief and try to determine if they're really any use for that purpose. Let's get to it. EMF meters seem to be the go-to piece of kit in every ghost hunter's arsenal, blindly wafting one around in some allegedly haunted location and delighting at every flash, beep and twitch of the needle. The most prevalent meter that you'll see brandished with wanton abandon in front of a camera is one of these, the K2 Safe Range EMF meter, to give you its proper name. K2 is the manufacturer, not the model number. Oh, and just to let you know, these vids aren't sponsored in any way. I buy this stuff with my own cash. It was invented back in the early 2000s by Keith Tupper, director of K2 Enterprises, Syracuse, New York. This thing was originally brought to market via power companies for checking overhead power lines, but it's since become synonymous with the world of ghost hunting. But what are EMF meters, and what do they actually measure? Well, to understand that, we'll need to get into some physics. Personally, I love physics, but for most it's a subject that's drier than an old camel's toe. But for the context of this vid, it's unfortunately necessary. I'll try and be gentle. EMF stands for electromagnetic field, except when it stands for electromagnetic flux or electromotive force. Thanks science, way to make things fucking complicated. Britannica.com defines an electromagnetic field as a property of space caused by the motion of an electric charge. Whereas a stationary charge will only produce an electric field, if the charge is moving, then a magnetic field is also produced. Britannica goes on to state that this electromagnetic field can be described as a wave transporting electromagnetic energy, which can be illustrated like this, where the sinusoidal magnetic and electric waves are perpendicular to each other. Sinusoidal has absolutely nothing to do with the nasal cavity, by the way, and physics girl Diana does a much better job of explaining EMF, so I'll link to one of her vids for those who are interested. The important word to note here is wave, because it's these waves that form what we know as the electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves and below all the way up to cosmic waves, and somewhere in the middle is the teeny tiny fraction that is what we perceive as visible light. But it's the wavelength that determines the type of electromagnetic radiation it actually is. Yup, radiation. You can clearly see the word used throughout the previous illustration. EMF are also considered to be radiation. To understand why, we'd need to get into wave-particle duality and quantum superposition, but both of these subjects are way beyond the scope of this vid. Down at the ultra-low frequency end of the spectrum, wavelengths are measured in kilometres, whilst at the other end, cosmic radiations are measured in femtometers. EMF are everywhere around us, both artificially created by our gadgets and appliances and naturally occurring. For example, a lightning strike sends out an electromagnetic pulse, the effects of which can be registered from kilometres away. That's why you'd hear a click if you were listening to AM stations on a radio. Hold on to that nugget for later. And one final note on EMF, they're created around both alternating and direct currents. Now that we all know what EMF is, how does an EMF meter go about measuring them? EMF meters generally fall into one of two categories, monoaxial or triaxial. And, as the name suggests, meters that fall into each category either have one or three sensors that take the measurements. The triaxial meters have sensors set out in an XYZ configuration and tend to be more expensive, but provide speedier and more accurate results as all three axes are measured at the same time. Monoaxial meters are less expensive, but to get accurate results, a reading has to be taken on all three axes. Then, the three values are put through this wonderful calculation to get an accurate field intensity. It's exactly the same calculation whether you're taking measurements for the electric field or the magnetic field. Electric field measurements are represented in volts per meter, whereas the SI unit for magnetic field measurements is the Tesla, named after the famous inventor and electrical engineer Nikola Tesla. As this is such a large unit to contend with, micro Tesla are used. Having said that, you may be more likely to see milligauss used as a unit of measurement, especially in US made meters. It's an older non-standard unit of magnetism, named after the German mathematician and physicist Johann Carl Friedrich Gauss. To convert, 1 microtesla equals 10 milligauss. Some EMF meters also measure radio frequency microwave radiation and makes these measurements in milliwatts per square meter. Just one final detail to consider, your body actually interferes with EMF, so physically holding a meter will affect the result on said meter. That's why some of the more expensive meters have a 1 meter pole with the sensor on the end to reduce these effects. And relax. Look, I'm sorry, I know that was a bit of a twat to get through, I just hope you're still with me. If you are, great. Whilst we take a breather, how about giving this vid a thumbs up? You could also take the time out to subscribe to the channel, remembering to make sure the notification bell is active. I promise you won't regret you did. Okay, we now have an understanding of what EMF is and how an EMF meter takes measurements. But how does the trusty SafeRange stand up?
The K2 meter measures magnetic fields, and it's been specially calibrated for paranormal investigators.
It's what now?
It's been specially calibrated for paranormal investigators.
Now that's a crock of shit. This is the first recorded instance that I can find where the SafeRange was used in a ghost hunt. It's probably what kicked off the whole EMF meter as a ghost detector craze in the first place. If you know of any earlier recorded instances, then please do let me know down in the comments. K2's SafeRange EMF meter is monoaxial, and like most affordable EMF meters, the only thing it's specifically calibrated to, yes, I'm looking at you, Grant Wilson, is 50-60 Hz AC fields, which is the frequency of European and US mains electricity. But it'll detect very low frequencies and beyond, according to Keith Tupper. This does, however, make this meter susceptible to RF interference. Hold on to that nugget too. Also, from what Keith has told me, the circuit board is electronically balanced so as to eliminate internal self-generated EMF from interfering with the external signal it's measuring, which is pretty cool. During my research for this vid, I did come across a blog by lensrental.com, based in Cordova, Tennessee. It's a highly amusing read, I'll put a link below. In it, they pulled apart 2 SafeRange meters and each unit had differing capacitor values. I emailed them and asked them if they'd supplied me with what the values were for each. My intention was to send these over to Keith at K2 to see how or if these differences affected the meter's functionality in any way. But they'd gotten rid of the meters, so ultimately they couldn't supply me with the info. If I manage to get these figures elsewhere, then I'll post an update. Keith has always asserted in his communication with me and with others that the SafeRange is a device for measuring EMF and nothing more. In a 2011 article on the Wall Street Journal website, link, he stated, "Does Casper exist? I don't know," and goes on to say, but if this instrument says there's an electromagnetic field, there's a field. When all's said and done with regards to how EMF meters work, the legitimacy of use in the quest to find evidence of ghosts all boils down to one pivotal and extremely crucial issue. Do ghosts actually affect EMF in any way, shape or form? In the literal weeks of research that I've put in for this vid, it's driven me absolutely fucking bananas. I found a plethora of websites, TV shows and YouTube channels all suggesting that ghosts can interact or create EMF, to which an EMF meter can then be used to prove it, all with absolutely zero data, information or references to back it up.
The prevailing theory is that spirits use EM.
They say that ghosts and entities pick up on EMF.
Detects electromagnetic fields that are in the air and what are said spirits give off.
Phrases like "it's believed" and "widely believed" are continually regurgitated without any regard for if what's being spouted is actually true or not. And by the looks and sounds of it, without doing any fucking research to find out.
The K2 meter measures magnetic fields, and it's been specially calibrated for paranormal investigators.
And you call yourselves twatting investigators. You can't even come to a common consensus as to how ghosts interact with EMF.
Spirits use EM.
Ghosts and entities pick up on EMF.
Electromagnetic fields spirits give off.
So how can what you say ever be taken seriously? If there is some original basis for this belief, then I can't find it. I've spent days, nay weeks trawling the internet trying to find any reference as to which bellend first posited that ghosts affect, create or interact with EMF. or indeed any proof whatsoever to back up this claim. I went around in circles so much it made me dizzy, and at one point I think I slipped into a coma.
Privatization may not have happened.
Ow. If anyone has information regarding who did first make this claim, or can at least point me in the right direction, then please leave me a comment down below. If I get any new information on this subject, as I mentioned earlier, then I'll gladly do a follow-up vid. So in the face of evidence, or complete and utter fucking lack thereof, what's the most probable reason for an EMF meter to trigger during an investigation? Well, pretty much any nearby piece of electrical equipment for starters, even if it appears to be switched off. If the investigation is in a derelict building, out in some field or in the middle of a cemetery, a typical ghost hunter will at least bring along a torch, a camera or camcorder, and a mobile phone. That's cell phone for our North American friends. Any one of these will trigger an EMF meter. Even Keith has admitted that the safe range will easily pick up a stray EMF pulse from a phone in a ghost hunter's pocket. If the EMF meter is passed over anything that's magnetic, this too will activate a spike, however small. There are also situations where home fuse box breaker systems, especially in older houses, and overhead power lines, if improperly grounded, can cause current to run through the domestic water pipe system and create an EMF reading. It's not just electrical sources in the immediate vicinity that can cause a trigger either. The aforementioned overhead power lines, local radio station transmitters, or even a mobile tower a kilometre away can cause an EMF meter to fluctuate. Nor does it have to be a man-made source to cause one. Remember the lightning EMP I mentioned earlier in the vid? A lightning strike kilometres away can make its presence known, even if the investigator or team don't register the flash or hear the resultant thunder. An EMF meter can. So why do ghost hunters persist in ignoring the possibility that an erroneous EMF spike can't be anything other than some ghostly presence? It's most likely down to an unhealthy dose of confirmation bias. But that, my friends, is a whole other video. That's your lot. Thanks for watching. Remember to give this vid a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't, then let me know why down in the comments and I'll go cry to myself in a corner. Or just simply try and improve the next one. Also, remember to subscribe for more content and click the bell icon for notifications. So long, and thanks for all the fish.